Have you ever met someone who seemed different? Not just eccentric or unique, but fundamentally empty inside. Someone whose presence felt cold, whose eyes seemed vacant, whose actions lacked any genuine warmth or compassion. According to renowned psychiatrist and spiritual researcher Dr. Brian Weiss, there are individuals walking among us who possess what he describes as incomplete souls, or in some cases, no soul connection at all. This isn't about judging others or creating fear. It's about developing the spiritual awareness to protect your energy and recognize the profound differences in human consciousness that exist in our world. Dr. Weiss, through decades of regression therapy and spiritual research, has identified specific patterns and traits that distinguish those with deep soul connections from those who operate from a fundamentally different spiritual framework. Understanding these differences can transform how we navigate relationships, protect our spiritual well-being, and maintain our own soul's integrity in a complex world. If you're ready to deepen your spiritual discernment and learn to recognize these crucial signs, you're in the right place. This knowledge could change how you see the people around you forever. Subscribe and activate notifications if you're ready to expand your spiritual awareness. And leave a comment saying, "I'm ready to evolve spiritually to connect with our awakening community." The concept of the soul has fascinated humanity for millennia, appearing in every major spiritual tradition and philosophical system throughout history. Dr. Brian Weiss, initially a skeptical psychiatrist trained in traditional Western medicine, discovered through his groundbreaking work with past life regression that consciousness extends far beyond what conventional science acknowledges. His research revealed that souls carry experiences, wisdom and karmic patterns across multiple lifetimes, continuously evolving and learning through various incarnations. However, Weiss's extensive work also uncovered a disturbing reality. Not everyone operates from the same spiritual foundation. While most humans possess what he terms old souls or young souls at various stages of development, there exists a category of individuals whose spiritual essence appears fundamentally different, or in some cases, absent altogether. These aren't necessarily evil people in the traditional sense, but rather beings who lack the internal compass, empathy, and spiritual connection that guides most human behavior. Different spiritual traditions have recognized this phenomenon throughout history. Ancient texts speak of hollow men, empty vessels, and beings who possess physical form but lack the divine spark that animates true human consciousness. Modern psychology has identified similar patterns in antisocial personality disorders and psychopathy, though these clinical terms only scratch the surface of what Weiss's spiritual research reveals. The soul, according to Weiss, serves as more than just the essence of our being. It's the source of our capacity for love, empathy, moral reasoning, and spiritual growth. It carries the accumulated wisdom from past experiences and provides the internal guidance system that helps us distinguish right from wrong, feel genuine connection with others, and experience the full spectrum of human emotion. When this fundamental component is missing or severely underdeveloped, the resulting behavior patterns become distinctly recognizable to those who know what to look for. Understanding these differences isn't about creating judgment or fear. It's about developing the spiritual discernment necessary to navigate a world where not everyone operates from the same consciousness level. This knowledge empowers us to protect our energy, make informed decisions about our relationships, and maintain our own spiritual integrity while dealing with various types of individuals. One of the most significant challenges in recognizing individuals without soul connections lies in their remarkable ability to mimic normal human behavior. Dr. Weiss explains that these individuals often become master manipulators, not necessarily out of conscious malice, but because they've learned to copy the emotional responses and social behaviors that allow them to function in society. They study others like actors learning roles, perfecting performances that can fool even experienced observers. This mimicry creates what Weiss calls spiritual confusion in those around them. People with developed souls instinctively sense something is wrong, but struggle to identify exactly what feels off. The individual might say all the right words, perform appropriate actions, and even appear charming or successful, yet something fundamental feels missing. This creates cognitive dissonance in others who can't reconcile their intuitive feelings with the person's outward presentation. The challenge becomes even more complex because these individuals often gravitate toward positions of power, influence, or trust. Without the moral constraints that guide soul-connected individuals, they may pursue success through any means necessary, sometimes achieving remarkable material accomplishments. This success can make others dismiss their intuitive concerns, thinking that achievement equals spiritual development. Dr. Weiss emphasizes that this mimicry extends beyond simple social interaction. These individuals learn to fake empathy, simulate love, and even perform acts of apparent kindness when it serves their purposes. However, the discerning observer will notice that these behaviors lack the spontaneous warmth, genuine emotion, and consistent moral framework that characterizes authentic human connection. The impact on those around them can be profound. People with deep soul connections often find themselves feeling drained, confused, or emotionally manipulated after extended contact with such individuals. They may question their own perceptions, blame themselves for relationship difficulties, or struggle with unexplained feelings of emptiness or anxiety in the person's presence. Share in the comments a time when you encountered someone whose presence felt fundamentally empty or draining, and how your intuition guided you through that experience. Dr. Weiss's research reveals that recognizing these individuals requires understanding how soul development manifests in human behavior, emotion, and spiritual expression. Souls, he explains, develop through countless experiences across multiple lifetimes, gradually learning lessons about love, compassion, wisdom, and spiritual growth. This development process creates distinct characteristics that become visible to those who understand what to observe. The first major area of difference lies in emotional processing and expression. Individuals with developed souls experience emotions as complex, nuanced experiences that connect them to universal human experiences. Their joy feels genuine and infectious, their sadness touches something deep and universal, and their love creates bonds that transcend immediate circumstances. These emotions serve as bridges to others and gateways to spiritual growth. In contrast, those without soul connections may experience what Weiss describes as surface emotions, reactions that mimic feelings but lack the depth, complexity, and spiritual resonance of genuine emotion. Their anger might feel cold and calculating rather than passionate, their happiness might seem superficial or self-serving, and their expressions of love might feel performative rather than authentic. The second area involves moral reasoning and ethical decision-making. Souls carry within them what various traditions call conscience, inner wisdom, or divine guidance. This creates an internal moral compass that operates even when external rules or consequences are absent. Soul-connected individuals may struggle with difficult decisions, feel genuine remorse when they cause harm, and experience internal conflict when their actions don't align with their deeper values. Those operating without this spiritual foundation approach moral decisions differently. They may follow social rules when convenient or beneficial, but lack the internal experience of conscience that guides behavior from within. Their decision-making process focuses primarily on immediate benefits, personal gain, or avoiding consequences rather than considering the deeper moral implications or impact on others' well-being. The third transformation involves spiritual growth and self-reflection. Souls are inherently drawn toward evolution, learning, and expansion of consciousness. This creates individuals who naturally engage in self-examination, seek meaning beyond material success, and demonstrate genuine interest in personal and spiritual development. They may not always achieve their ideals, but the drive toward growth and betterment remains constant. Without this spiritual foundation, individuals may show little genuine interest in self-improvement beyond surface-level achievements. They might engage with spiritual concepts intellectually or use spiritual language when beneficial, but lack the internal drive toward authentic transformation that characterizes soul-guided development. Leave a like if this deeper understanding of soul development resonates with your own spiritual journey and observations. Now we arrive at the heart of Dr. Weiss's observations, the specific traits that distinguish those without soul connections from the rest of humanity. These aren't occasional behaviors or temporary states, but consistent patterns that persist across different situations, relationships, and life circumstances. Understanding these traits can provide crucial protection and guidance for those seeking to maintain their spiritual well-being. The first trait Weiss identifies is what he calls emotional vacancy, a fundamental absence of genuine emotional depth. While these individuals may display emotions when beneficial or necessary, careful observation reveals that their emotional expressions lack the authentic resonance that characterizes soul-connected individuals. Their laughter might sound hollow, their tears might feel manipulative, and their expressions of love might seem calculated rather than spontaneous. This emotional vacancy becomes particularly apparent in moments of crisis or genuine human need. When others are experiencing real pain, joy, or vulnerability, these individuals often respond in ways that feel inappropriately detached, performative, or self-serving. They might say appropriate words or perform expected actions, but the genuine emotional connection that soul-connected individuals naturally provide remains absent. The second trait involves what Weiss terms empathy disruption. True empathy requires the ability to genuinely feel and understand another person's experience, to temporarily step outside one's own perspective and connect with someone else's emotional reality. This capacity emerges naturally from soul development and serves as one of the primary ways conscious beings connect and support each other. Individuals without soul connections may understand empathy intellectually and learn to mimic empathetic responses, but they lack the genuine capacity to truly feel what others experience. Their responses to others' pain, joy, or need often feel mechanical, inappropriate in intensity, or timed in ways that serve their own agenda, rather than the other person's genuine need for support or understanding. The third trait manifests as moral flexibility, an absence of the consistent internal moral compass that guides soul-connected behavior. While most humans struggle with moral decisions and sometimes fail to live up to their ideals, they possess an internal sense of right and wrong that operates independently of external consequences or personal benefit. Those without this spiritual foundation approach moral decisions as strategic calculations rather than matters of conscience. They may follow social rules when beneficial, but demonstrate remarkable flexibility in their ethical standards when personal gain is involved. Their moral reasoning often centers entirely on avoiding consequences or achieving desired outcomes, rather than considering the inherent rightness or wrongness of their actions. The fourth trait involves what Weiss describes as spiritual immunity, a fundamental inability to connect with spiritual concepts, practices, or experiences in any authentic way. While they may learn spiritual language, participate in spiritual communities, or even assume spiritual leadership roles, their engagement remains entirely intellectual or strategic rather than experiential. This spiritual immunity extends beyond religious participation to include the broader human experiences that connect us to something greater than ourselves, awe at natural beauty, wonder at life's mysteries, genuine gratitude for blessings, or the sense of interconnectedness that characterizes authentic spiritual experience. These profound human experiences simply don't register for individuals operating without soul connections. The fifth and perhaps most recognizable trait is what Weiss calls energy vampirism, a consistent pattern of depleting rather than nourishing the people around them. While everyone occasionally drains others during difficult periods, soul-connected individuals also contribute positive energy to relationships and interactions. They uplift others through genuine love, support, encouragement, and positive presence. Those without soul connections operate differently. They may unconsciously or consciously feed off others' emotional energy, attention, or spiritual vitality without reciprocating. People often feel depleted, confused, or emotionally drained after extended contact with such individuals, even when the interaction appeared positive on the surface. Comment below if you've recognized these patterns in someone from your past and how understanding these traits helped you process that relationship. Dr. Weiss emphasizes that recognizing these traits in personal relationships requires both spiritual discernment and emotional courage. Many people struggle to acknowledge these patterns in family members, romantic partners, close friends, or respected community members, because accepting the reality challenges fundamental assumptions about human nature and the relationships that shape our lives. In family relationships, these dynamics can be particularly complex and painful. A parent, sibling, or child who operates without soul connections creates confusion and distress that family members often struggle to understand or address. The biological bond and social expectations surrounding family love can make it difficult to acknowledge that a family member fundamentally lacks the capacity for genuine emotional connection. Dr. Weiss explains that these family members often become skilled at manipulating family dynamics, using guilt, obligation, or emotional blackmail to maintain control and access to the energy they need. They may create drama that keeps the family focused on their needs, play family members against each other, or cycle between periods of apparent warmth and cold rejection in ways that keep others constantly off balance. Romantic relationships with such individuals create what Weiss terms spiritual cognitive dissonance, a painful conflict between the heart's longing for genuine love and the reality of being connected to someone incapable of authentic emotional reciprocity. These relationships often begin with intense attraction, or what appears to be deep connection. As the individual without soul connection may initially invest significant energy in creating an appealing facade. Over time, however, the relationship begins to feel hollow, one-sided, or emotionally exhausting. The soul-connected partner may find themselves constantly giving, supporting, and trying to fix problems, while receiving little genuine emotional nourishment in return. They may blame themselves for the relationship difficulties, or exhaust themselves trying to love someone into spiritual awakening. In professional or community relationships, these individuals may achieve significant success or recognition while leaving a trail of confusion and emotional damage in their wake. They might excel at networking, self-promotion, or achieving goals through manipulation, rather than genuine collaboration and mutual support. Recognizing these patterns requires trusting your spiritual intuition even when external evidence seems contradictory. Dr. Weiss teaches that soul-connected individuals possess an innate ability to sense the spiritual presence or absence in others, but social conditioning often teaches us to discount these intuitive perceptions in favor of logical analysis or social expectations. The key is learning to notice your own energy patterns around different people. Do you feel uplifted, supported, and energized after spending time with someone? Do you sense genuine warmth, spontaneous joy, and authentic emotional depth in their presence? Or do you consistently feel drained, confused, or subtly manipulated despite the person's outward presentation? Write in the comments, "Today I trust my spiritual intuition and honor my energy boundaries," if you're ready to prioritize your spiritual well-being in your relationships. Understanding the evidence and manifestations of soul absence requires developing what Dr. Weiss calls spiritual discernment, the ability to perceive beyond surface presentations and recognize the deeper spiritual realities operating in human interactions. This discernment involves both intellectual understanding and intuitive perception, creating a comprehensive awareness that protects against manipulation and confusion. Statistical research, while limited in this area due to the spiritual nature of the phenomena, suggests that individuals with severe empathy deficits and antisocial traits represent approximately 1 to 4% of the population. However, Weiss's spiritual research indicates that the number of individuals operating with severely underdeveloped or absent soul connections may be higher, as many learn to function in society without displaying the obvious antisocial behaviors that traditional psychology measures. Case studies from Dr. Weiss's practice reveal consistent patterns across different cultural, educational, and socioeconomic backgrounds. These individuals often achieve material success through manipulation, exploitation, or strategic relationship management, rather than genuine collaboration and mutual benefit. They may excel in fields that reward surface-level charm, strategic thinking, or competitive advantage, while struggling in situations that require genuine empathy, moral integrity, or authentic emotional connection. One particularly telling area involves their relationships with animals, children, and vulnerable populations. Souls naturally feel protective toward innocence and vulnerability, creating spontaneous compassion and care for those who cannot protect themselves. Individuals without soul connections may treat these relationships as strategic opportunities or show disturbing indifference to genuine suffering and need. Dr. Weiss documents cases where such individuals demonstrate remarkable ability to identify and exploit others' spiritual gifts, emotional vulnerabilities, or unconscious needs. They become skilled at recognizing what others want to hear, what emotional responses will create desired outcomes, and how to position themselves as sources of what others seek, while providing only hollow imitations of genuine connection. The impact on communities and spiritual groups can be particularly devastating. These individuals may gravitate toward spiritual organizations, healing professions, or helping roles not out of genuine calling but because these positions provide access to vulnerable, seeking individuals who are naturally trusting and open to guidance. They may assume leadership roles in spiritual communities, therapeutic practices, or religious organizations while lacking the authentic spiritual connection that should guide such responsibilities. Testimonies from those who have recognized and separated from such relationships describe similar patterns. Initial attraction or fascination, gradual realization that something fundamental is missing, periods of self-doubt and confusion, eventual recognition of the manipulation and energy drain, and finally, the challenging but liberating process of establishing boundaries or ending the relationship. Physical evidence sometimes manifests in what sensitive individuals describe as energetic or atmospheric changes in the person's presence. Many report feeling inexplicably cold, anxious, or depleted around such individuals, even when the interaction appears positive. Some describe sensing an emptiness or void, where they would normally feel another person's energetic presence. Dr. Weiss emphasizes that this evidence accumulates over time and across multiple interactions and situations. Single incidents or isolated behaviors don't indicate soul absence, but consistent patterns that persist regardless of circumstances, feedback, or consequences point to fundamental differences in spiritual composition and consciousness level. If this information is helping you make sense of confusing relationships or experiences, leave a like so this message can reach others who need this spiritual clarity and protection. Dr. Weiss's approach to dealing with soul-absent individuals emphasizes protection, discernment, and spiritual boundary setting, rather than attempting to fix, change, or save such individuals. His research clearly demonstrates that the absence or severe underdevelopment of soul connection cannot be addressed through conventional therapeutic techniques, logical persuasion, or emotional appeals that work with soul-connected individuals. The first principle involves accepting the reality without attempting to analyze, excuse, or rationalize the behavior patterns. Many soul-connected individuals waste enormous amounts of energy trying to understand why someone behaves without empathy, attempting to find the traumatic experience that explains the absence of conscience, or believing they can love someone into spiritual awakening. Weiss explains that this approach often perpetuates the harmful dynamic while depleting the soul-connected individual's spiritual resources. Instead, he advocates for what he terms compassionate detachment, acknowledging the individual's spiritual condition with sadness rather than anger, while firmly protecting your own energy and well-being. This doesn't require hatred or condemnation, but does demand realistic assessment of their capacity for genuine change or authentic relationship. Practical boundary setting becomes essential when complete separation isn't possible due to family relationships, work situations, or other circumstances. This involves limiting emotional vulnerability, maintaining professional rather than personal interactions, and avoiding situations where the individual has power over your resources, reputation, or emotional well-being. Dr. Weiss teaches specific energetic protection techniques for necessary interactions with such individuals. These include visualizing protective light surrounding your energy field, setting clear internal intentions before interactions, and consciously choosing not to engage with emotional manipulation attempts. He emphasizes that these techniques work not through magical thinking, but by maintaining your own spiritual center and clarity during potentially confusing or draining encounters. The healing process for those who have been in close relationship with soul-absent individuals often requires what Weiss calls spiritual recovery, rebuilding trust in your own perceptions, healing the energy depletion caused by extended exposure to such dynamics, and relearning to recognize and appreciate authentic soul connection in others. This recovery process typically involves reconnecting with your own spiritual practices, surrounding yourself with genuinely soul-connected individuals who can provide authentic emotional nourishment, and often working with spiritual counselors or therapists who understand these dynamics from both psychological and spiritual perspectives. Dr. Weiss also emphasizes the importance of developing gratitude for the learning experience, difficult though it may have been. These challenging relationships often accelerate spiritual growth, develop discernment abilities, and deepen appreciation for authentic love and connection. They serve as powerful teachers about the nature of consciousness, the reality of spiritual differences among humans, and the importance of protecting and nurturing our own soul development. Prevention involves developing and trusting your intuitive abilities to recognize authentic soul connection in others. This means paying attention to how you feel in someone's presence over time, noticing whether their emotions feel genuine and consistent, observing their treatment of vulnerable individuals, and assessing whether they demonstrate genuine capacity for self-reflection, moral growth, and authentic spiritual interest. Most importantly, Weiss teaches that recognizing and avoiding these dynamics allows soul-connected individuals to invest their energy in relationships and activities that genuinely support spiritual growth, mutual upliftment, and authentic love. Rather than being depleted by those who cannot reciprocate spiritual connection, we can focus on nurturing relationships with others who share our capacity for genuine empathy, moral development, and spiritual evolution. Comment: I choose relationships that honor and nourish my soul's journey if you're ready to prioritize authentic spiritual connections in your life. The journey of developing spiritual discernment and protecting your soul's integrity in a world where not everyone operates from the same consciousness level represents one of the most important aspects of spiritual development. Dr. Weiss's research provides crucial guidance for navigating these complex realities while maintaining your own spiritual center and continuing your soul's evolutionary journey. Understanding these patterns isn't about developing fear or suspicion toward others, but rather about honoring your own spiritual development enough to protect it from those who would unconsciously or consciously drain, manipulate, or exploit your gifts. Your soul's journey is precious, and developing the wisdom to recognize authentic spiritual connection versus its absence serves your highest good and the good of all genuinely seeking souls. The key insights from Dr. Weiss's work remind us that consciousness exists at different levels, that not all humans operate from the same spiritual foundation, and that recognizing these differences empowers us to make wise choices about our relationships, energy investments, and spiritual practices. This knowledge helps us appreciate more deeply the authentic soul connections we do encounter while protecting ourselves from those who lack this fundamental capacity. Moving forward, trust your intuitive perceptions about the spiritual presence or absence you sense in others. Notice how different people affect your energy, emotions, and spiritual well-being. Surround yourself with those who genuinely uplift, support, and share your commitment to spiritual growth and authentic love. And remember that your ability to recognize these differences indicates your own spiritual development and serves as protection for your continued evolution. The souls who are meant to walk alongside you on this journey will recognize and honor the divine spark within you, just as you recognize and honor theirs. These are the relationships worth nurturing, protecting, and celebrating. They represent the true purpose of human connection, mutual support in our collective journey toward greater love, wisdom, and spiritual awakening. Dr. Weiss's teachings ultimately remind us that we are here to learn, grow, and evolve together with other conscious beings who share our capacity for genuine love and spiritual development. By recognizing and avoiding those who operate from fundamentally different consciousness levels, We create space for the authentic connections